Hey friends, it's Tracy. Today I'm sharing a couple of videos of what I did using this beautiful fabric from a friend. Now, this fabric is from Walmart. It's a Waverly brand fabric, and it was included in my mystery box challenge that I participated back in February. Sweet Whitney from Whiskey and Wit sent this to me as part of my mystery box. I will link to that video if you hadn't had a chance to see that. But for now, let's go ahead and get into the projects that I used this beautiful fabric for. These are some of the supplies I'm using for this project. Now first I took the wood bunny and just used my heat tool to heat up the tail and the inner part of the ears to get that off because I'm going to be adding some fabric. One of the plastic tiles. Now I got mine from Family Dollar because I could never find them at the Dollar Tree. Anyway, so I flipped my bunny over to the side that I wanted to trace so that it would be the right side. Then I just cut it out with my scissors and then glued it down with some Fabri-Tac glue. I did have to go back in some spots to add some hot glue around the edges just to make sure that it was, down. So I'm taking the lavender chalk paint and I am giving it a good coat of that just with this little sponge brush roller. And then once that dries, I go back later and add a second coat. While my bunny is drying, I'm going to Mod Podge put a layer of Mod Podge on my wood inner parts of my ears, and then I'm just going to add some fabric. I cut off some pieces of that beautiful fabric just so that I could get these flowers on there, and then I just cut off the excess, just with my fabric scissors. Okay, so then now I'm taking just thin strips of the fabric. I ripped it apart and then I cut about 4-inch strips and just enough for me to kind of work with. I tie it off in the middle and then I'm going to trim it pretty good. This is going to be my fluffy tail for my cute little lavender bunny. When my bunny is dry, I'm taking some plaster color chalk paint as well as a palette knife and just going along and just kind of hitting the high parts of that raised area of the plastic tile. This really just kind of gives it like a chippy look and just really kind of just gives it the distress look that I like for my projects. Now in some spots I was kind of being a little too fast and I got a little too clumpy. So what I did is I just went back and just added more of the lavender paint and, so that it wouldn't be so splotchy in certain areas. I use my distress ink just to go around the edges to give it a shadow. And then I glued the inner part of the ears on. I glued the tail on. And now I'm going to make a little tag. I took one of the brown tags that was in my mystery box, and that is what I'm going to make as a tag. Now I'm also taking a piece of muslin fabric and I just hand lettered blessed on there. I'm going to rip that or give it the jagged edges, and then I will glue that on the tag. And then I'm going to be using some of that fabric as well as some moss green gingham fabric just to rip some strips and make a bow. I'm also using some jewelry cording. I like to add this to my bows and that kind of thing. I think it gives just a little bit of a rustic touch. I also included some jewelry cording or hem cording just to enhance the whimsical touch of the bow. Now for the small lavender flower, this is one that I had on hand and I just painted it with that lavender paint and just hot glued it right there in the center of the bunny, and I just think it just ties everything together. These paper mache tulips came from the Target dollar spot several years ago. I've had them in my stash and just was never really inspired to create with them until now. They were $3 and I just like the size of them. And so ever since Whitney sent me this fabric in my DIY mystery box that we did last week, I'm inspired. I'm like, this is what I'm going to do for my tulips. And so I'm going to be attaching some fabric to both sides of the tulip. All right, so I just took the lavender paint and just painted the sides of the tulips. And then I was going to add that gingham moss green to the actual, like the stem of the flower, but I just changed my mind and decided to do some crackling. And so I painted it a coat of the plaster color chalk paint, and then now I'm going in with some school glue and adding that to the stem and just taking a foam brush and just spreading that around and letting that dry almost to where it's dry. And then I go in with some moss color chalk paint and add that to it, and then just let it dry on its own, and it gives me some crackles. And I love this. It just, I don't know, it just gives the bit of whimsy that I like. And I had to do each side separately so that it would have the time to dry. I just let it dry on its own and it turned out beautiful. All right, for the fabric, now this is the beautiful fabric that Whitney sent to me in my DIY mystery box. If you missed that video, I will leave a link for that here. I just used my Cricut mini press just to press out the creases so that I could cut it apart into sections and not have to worry about that crease. So I'm using the Mod Podge heat transfer method, and if you're not familiar with that, I'll just quickly explain. You just put Mod Podge on your surface, let that dry completely. Then I use my Cricut mini press. You could use a small iron. I use parchment paper to kind of add as a buffer, and then I just put the fabric on the tulip. I added it to both sides, and I love the way that this looks. It just looks so springy and just beautiful. All right, so for the moss and cream colored gingham fabric, I just tore strips of that and just tying it around the stem of the flower, just in a bow. And then of course, fabric is a little limp, so I used my Stiffen Quick fabric spray just to add a little bit of body for my flowers. And I just love the way that my tulips turned out, and they pair so nicely with my lavender bunny. I just think all of this beautiful fabric just ties in together, and I still have some left, so I can make more spring projects. Thanks guys for watching. I appreciate your continued support, and we will see you in the next video. God bless you and have a wonderful day.